This week on Muscle Cars and Hot Rods, we're going to color sand out the finish on this ZO6 behind me. We've got the body work done to the deck lid on the Plymouth Roadrunner, and the front suspension started going in. In addition to that, I did a little bit of rust repair in the back windowsill of the Roadrunner. So stick around. I hope you like what you see. Alright, here's the deck lid to the 69 Plymouth Roadrunner. All the body work's been completed, and we're going to get it ready for a few coats of a high build dry sand primer. Okay, there it is in primer. Now I'm going to get going on the tail panel and then the rear cowl. Right now, this Corvette ZO6 got a refinish recently, and we're going to go ahead and put a little bit nicer than factory finish on it. So I'm going to start sanding it down with 1500 grit Meguiar sanding paper, which I've started to soak for about 20 minutes or better to get it nice and wet. And then we'll finish it off with some 2000, maybe some 2500. So like I've said, I started to soak my paper, and the directions say for about 15-20 minutes, but I think that it's fine to go ahead and get it going and longer than that. And then I start to tape off all the cracks in the areas where I don't want the sanding residue to go to. So if we look at the finish right now, in the you look at the reflection of that fluorescent up above me, you can see there's a little bit of peel, and of course, like any paint job, especially here in Arizona, there's going to be little bits of dirt nibs in the clear coat. And what we'll do is we'll basically sand down one panel at a time with 1500 grit, then 2000 grit, and then if I feel it needs it, we'll hit it with some 2500 grit. I always like to start on the top of the car, so I'll start with the roof, then I'll probably do the hood, deck lid, and then go down the sides of the car. Some people like to use a squirt bottle when they're wet sanding. Some people like to use a hose. I started with the bucket method, and I know there's drawbacks. People say it gets dirty and whatnot, but I usually keep my bucket specifically for color sanding, and I keep a lid on it while I'm going. I don't like the squirt bottle method because I find that it runs out too quick and you're always trying to fill the squirt bottle. That's a pain in the ass. And then the hose is just too wet and you're carrying around this big cumbersome thing. So, you know, just the good old-fashioned wet sanding bucket with a nice clean towel, and I think that that works the best. So this is the Meguiar's High-Tech Wash number 00, and I'll splash a good, not quite an ounce, but a good little amount in the water to give the water a little bit of lube and help it glide along on the surface a little bit. We want to try and minimize any deep scratches or anything. Also, when I'm color sanding, I don't listen to any music. What I'm listening to is when you sand over a little dirt nib, inevitably that'll get cut free from the surface, and you want to make sure that you don't have that between your sanding paper and the clear coat, because then you'll start putting deep grooves in it. So I don't listen to the radio or anything when I'm color sanding. I just listen to the paint and listen to the sandpaper. I want to be sure that I'm not cutting any deep grooves in my clear coat. Okay, let's talk a little bit about sanding blocks for when I color sand. Right here, this is an acrylic stick. If you ever hear about me say I'm going to stick a clear coat flat, I'll usually take this acrylic stick and I'll put some 1000 grit Meguiar sanding paper on it, and I'll start blocking down that peel flat with it. And then I'll usually step up to 1200 grit, and I'll use this sanding block. And this is just a Norton sanding block. I like the one with the holes in it because it creates a little bit of a vacuum between the piece of sandpaper and the block. Helps to hold it a little better. I'll use this with my 1200, my 1500, stuff like that. And then generally when I start sanding with 2000, I won't use any block. I'll just use the palm of my hand. And it's really important that you just use the ball of your hand. right here. Don't use your fingers or anything like that, just a ball. So when I'm sanding, I just keep my hand pointed out so the ball's holding on to the sandpaper. And basically when you work progressively up, like on this Corvette, we're going to start with 1500. Well, I'm using my 1500 to sand out any dirt nibs, any orange peel in the clear coat. But then when I switch over to my 2000, I'm not worried about the orange peel or dirt nibs or anything anymore. I'm just using the 2000, or maybe we'll even use 2500, and I'm just trying to use that finer grit sandpaper to take out the previous grit sandpaper so that when it actually comes time to buff out the car, it's a nice easy buff. Okay, so we've sanded a little while on the roof of the car. We're going to take our trusty squeegee, our little rubber squeegee, and we're going to dry the hood off. And we're going to take a look at what we got. Okay, let's get a focus in on this right here. This is a little piece of dirt that fell into the clear coat when it was being cleared. So what I'm going to do with my 1500 grit is I'm going to continue to sand on this area right here until that's completely flat. Let's see what else we got going on. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on YouTube or on the internet, but you'll be able to see it fine on the camera right here. You can see I haven't sanded enough in this area, and you can still see peel and sanding scratches and whatnot. And then, you know, obviously over here I haven't sanded at all yet. So I like to break it up and just do a small little area at a time. Notice what's going on. I don't want to go any further than I need to go because I realize that the clear coat is my UV protection and the protection for the paint job. But I do want to have it looking nice. So I just take a little area at a time and I keep on going from there. Okay, now the roof's all sanded down with 1500 grit, and I just wanted to give you one last little tip. If you notice the way I'm sanding with my 1500, I'm going at a cross hatch motion. And I do that for two reasons. Number one, I find that it cuts the peel down quicker and flatter. But number two, when I go through to sand it with the 2000 grit, I'm going to switch up my pattern and go with the motion of the car from the front to the back. And basically every time I wipe the car from there on out, it will be from the front to back. Now that'll allow me to see when I've sanded out all my 1500 grit sandpaper scratches with the 2000, but it will also, well, how do I say it? Every time you touch clear coat, you scratch it. It doesn't matter what you do. So what I do when I'm trying to do it is I try to get those little scratches to go with the flow of the car. I'm not going to be Mr. Miyagi and doing the wax on, wax off, because I'm going to have a bunch of circular scratches. But if I go with the flow of the car, it creates an optical illusion so that the eye doesn't pick up on it, and it just accepts the little scratches in the clear. Now, of course, every time you wax your car, you're filling those little scratches. But every time you touch clear coat, when it's polished out like this, you are scratching it. Alright, we're done with this. Vado and I spent the past 2 days blocking on this car. No swirls, looking sweet.
When you're old enough, you can drink beer with us, man.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good.
How much more can you have?
Alright, I'm going to go ahead and end this video right there. Be sure to tune in next time. We'll get all the parts polished out to the Corvette. If you want to see how it is that we actually buff, tune into a few videos in the past and check out how I buffed out Anna's 99 Mustang. That's basically what we did here. And let's see, you'll see that the Mustang's still here. We're still waiting on some parts for it. Same old story with it. All right.